Zach Neto has gone from being a Camel to a Los Angeles Angel in less than a year. I hopped on with Mike and Jon from Locked On Angels. We talked about the Zach Neto call-up and what to expect going forward. We took a victory lap on Logan O'Hoppe, and I explained why Ben Joyce would not be the next prospect called up by the Angels. Let's talk about it.
You are Locked On MLB Prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on in to Locked On MLB Prospects, your home for all things minor league baseball. I'm your host, Lindsay Crosby, editor-in-chief of BravesToday.com, freelance baseball writer and podcaster. Thank you for making this your first listen. Every single day, we're proudly part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. And today's episode is made possible by our friends at HelloFresh. Skip trips to the grocery store and count on HelloFresh to make home cooking easy, fun, and affordable. That's why it's America's #1 meal kit. Go to HelloFresh.com/MLB60 and use code MLB60 for 60% off plus free shipping. Again, HelloFresh.com/MLB60. So in the wake of the Zach Neto call-up, first player from the 2022 MLB draft to make the bigs, I hopped on Locked On Angels with Mike and Jon, the Super Halo Bros, to talk about Zach Neto, why he was called up, was it too early, discuss the expectations for him, and then, like I said in the intro, we took the victory lap on Logan O'Hoppe, and the conversation ended up with Ben Joyce later, and we had to talk about why he's not going to get called up by the Angels. Enjoy.
Well, we're happy to welcome in Lindsay Crosby of Locked On MLB Prospects. And if you're watching Locked On MLB Prospects, Lindsay's welcoming in us. We're the Super Halo Bros from Locked On Angels. So we're happy to get together and talk about some of the prospects that the Angels have called up for this season. And first, we're going to start out with Zach Neto. Lindsay, I have a funny stat here. Did you know that Zach Neto's last collegiate hit and the time between that and his first major league hit, 317 days. How about that?
Less than a year. It
very
rarely happens.
Wow. Man, we were shocked to get the news over the weekend, but after the defensive showcase that they put on Friday against the Red Sox, it was like, all right, guys, something's got to give here.
Yeah.
So a lot of people felt like that was very fast, and I'm interested to hear, when is it too soon to call up a prospect? When is a good time to call up a prospect?
So there's no clear definitive answer, right? But the way that I always look at it is, can you answer the remaining questions about that player in the minor leagues? And so when you look at Zach Neto, very good pitch recognition, very low strikeouts in college. I want to say less than 10%.
Yeah. Still
Still kept it under 20% in the bigs. And so my questions were overall power ceiling, and then defensively, how long is the adjustment period to go from playing at Campbell to Major League Baseball athletes running to first base?
Right.
And when I watched a little bit in Rocket City last year, that was the observation, was the arm is strong. It's a plus arm. The hands are good. The actions are good, but the internal clock wasn't right there. There would be times when he'd get a slow roller, he'd barehand it, and he'd go to rush a throw to first. And it's like, you don't have a shot at getting him. You need to just pocket that ball instead of throwing it. And so I was wondering, how long would it take that clock to dial in? And he's an instinctive player. He's pretty good with this stuff, but he's not dead on with it yet. And it's kind of hard to figure that out at the AA level because of the level of competition, the quality of competition. So you can give him enough time in AA, you would have been able to answer that question, but you can be 85% of the way there, bring him up and let him get the last bit at the major league level. So I'd probably expect a little bit of defensive issues here and there, nothing drastic, but give him some time to learn how long it takes, some of these major league players to get down the line. And that's your adjustment period, is that. And then how does the power play at the major league level?
Interesting.
Where will he be great? That's the biggest question that I think a lot of Angel fans want to know. When he comes up, what does he bring to this team? What can we expect him to do really well? And where do you think, and you mentioned some of it, but where do you think he's going to need to grow a bit now that he's on the major league roster and playing every single day?
I think at the very beginning, he does raise the floor and raise the ceiling of your defense. I've watched him make some very, very good plays. Again, the question is, how long does it take to transition? I also think he's a very good base runner. He doesn't steal a ton of bags, right? But when you watch him, he's very good at going first to third on a single, at threatening a single into a double, scoring from second on a base hit, things like that. Another situation where you have to wonder, the first time he tries that against one of these major leaguers with a massive arm, like a Ronald Acuna Jr. or somebody like that, what happens? But I feel like that's a positive element he can bring that you weren't really getting from David Fletcher's game. And then you can also just get the approach at the plate very good against velocity, which, again, from a smaller school, that's a little surprising, but he has a baseball background. And the overall quality of contact. He's very good at not chasing, very good at making solid contact in the zone. So, again, the whole question here is, one, the adjustment period it takes for him to get to MLB. And then the bigger one is, once opposing pitchers get a book on him, how long does it take him to adjust to that? Those are the two big questions. The first one is he got, I want to say he picked up his first hit today. He's looked good at the plate. He hasn't been completely fooled on stuff. Once they start to get a book on him and figure out here's how we get him out, what's his adjustment period like? That's my big question.
That makes sense. Yeah, just in the short sample size that we have of him in the bigs, I agree with the plate discipline. I can tell that guy has a good eye at the plate. He's not chasing stuff out of the zone. He did get robbed of an at-bat, I would say, in his first game due to some bad strike calls off the zone.
Right.
So to me, that says you have great discipline at the plate. You have a great eye for the zone.
The umpire was fooled and you weren't.
Yes, exactly. And then, Lindsay, he got a high fastball up in the zone, 96, and that was his first hit. And it went out to I want to say between, left and center field, and it was a single. And then, as you said, he stretched that next single, first to third, got on third, was able to score because of it. So I was really impressed with the base running as well. And the other thing that I noticed, he's making good contact, good hard contact. A lot of his ground balls went right to third base, and you got Rafael Devers over there. Imagine, starting on Jackie Robinson Day at Fenway, in this esteemed stadium. That's your first day, But I think he put the nerves behind him because all throughout the series, it seemed like he was making great contact, and he finally broke through for that first base hit, which was great.
Yeah, he doesn't have the overwhelmingly ridiculous raw power, but he maximizes when he does make contact with the ball. If you measure it from just exit velocity and things like that, it's kind of modest. But he does a good job at the swing is an uphill swing to get the ball in the air. He pulls the ball quite a bit, not to a detriment, but he understands the right way to leverage the barrel in the zone to get the ball up and can backspin the ball pretty well. I think this year he's going to look more like the slash line of Adley Rutschman last year, more doubles than home runs, but something where he's going to be able to grow into that as he spends a little more time in the bigs. The thing we have to remember, he is still only 22 years old.
Right. Yeah.
So it's probably more doubles power than home run power now and a lot of pull stuff. But I think the keys to look for to see how the power's coming in is when does he start to expand from just a pull hitter to more of the whole field, hitting to center, hitting the opposite way. Sure. And then when do those balls keep carrying instead of being doubles, end up going out of the park? So
when the Angels played the final game on Monday against the Red Sox, Taylor Ward sat, and so he usually leads off for them. So Zach Neto was leading off. Where do you think he slots best in a major league lineup? Because I know he was leading off some in Rocket City. So where would you place him? If you're Phil Nevin, where are you slotting him in your lineup every single day?
I like the idea of putting him first. I do acknowledge that's probably a lot of pressure on a 22-year-old kid. It's like, hey, you're going to bat in front of Shohei and Mike Trout.
Yes. Yeah. Good luck.
No, I know you were at Campbell last year, but this time, so I like the idea of that. But if you're not batting him first, because Taylor Ward's back or whoever it may be, I do like the idea of having him somewhere towards the back end of the lineup so that he can he's not driving guys in for the most part, but he can get on base. He can take extra bases. You want him to be on base when that 1 through 4 come up to bat. So if you're not leading him off, have him towards the bottom of the lineup almost like a second leadoff man. Doesn't quite maximize the number of times he gets to the plate, but does give it, when he is at the plate in the middle of the game, a good chance to get on and then get driven in.
What's the limit for a prospect like this? Like, when do you see their play and you see how they're taking their approach at the plate and you go, we might need to reconsider this? Is there a line in the sand there? What do you think?
For me, it's typically when they start to struggle and they've had about 2 weeks of struggles. So it's not cut and dry a specific amount, but it's something where, okay, he was rocking a 20% strikeout rate in Double-A. He got up to about 28 or 30% in the bigs because they learned he chases the slider down in the way or whatever it may be. He's had about 2 weeks to adjust to that. Are the numbers improving, or is he still struggling with the same thing?
That makes sense.
And it's something where if you go back and you look at a lot of the good hitters in MLB, that's a similar transition they had to do. I can think about Austin Riley of the Braves getting sent back down because he struggled so much with that slider down and away. And it took him until the next season to be the Austin Riley that we know now. Right. So it's kind of 2 weeks after the struggles start. And the question's always, when are the struggles going to start? That's always the hardest part to answer. But for me, it feels like for Zach Neto, they're going to come eventually. The question is, how quickly does he fix it? From what I've seen of him, from what I understand from his baseball background, his instincts and everything, I feel like he should be able to fix it rather quickly. It's just a question of when does it start? Back to our conversation with Mike and Jon in just a minute. But first, today's episode is brought to you by our friends at So Rare. It's a revolutionary fantasy baseball game and marketplace that transforms fans into owners with officially licensed digital cards featuring players from across all 30 MLB teams. You legitimately own the fantasy experience. You can collect, buy, sell, and compete with your player cards against opponents all over the world. So you pick a fantasy team of 7 positions. There's 2 competitions per week, Monday through Thursday and Friday through Sunday. You are picking 7 players: starting pitcher, relief pitcher, corner infielder, middle infielder, outfielder, extra hitter, and then flex. Any player but Shohei Ohtani, because he kind of breaks the game. And then your players earn points based on what happened on the field. Your position in the standings helps determine your rewards. Maybe it's rare cards. Maybe it's tickets to a real-life MLB game. Maybe it's merchandise, signed jerseys, VIP experiences. Prizes vary depending on the competition that you choose. So head to sorare.com/lockedon, sorare.com/lockedon to draft your team of free player cards, set your lineup, and start competing today to win epic rewards. Again, that's sorare.com/lockedon to start playing today.
Well, from one rookie, Zach Neto, to one rookie that we're really excited about, Logan O'Hoppe. He's been our starting catcher. He has been our lead guy in home runs and RBIs, and you were the guy that predicted that, so you're a prophet. So we're excited about that. So tell us what you think about Logan O'Hoppe's season so far.
I'm honestly a little bit surprised by the power performance. I don't quite think I had this exactly the same. So some of the projections going into the season for Logan O'Hoppe had him, like I want to say in Steamer and Zips, he was around 240, 325, 420 was kind of the projection for Logan O'Hoppe. And I had him somewhere, I had the power a little bit higher, probably about 430, 440 or so. He's got a 560 slugging right now.
Yeah.
So doing a little bit better than that. And I think part of it is he's been, same thing, he's been maximizing the quality of the contact. He's still striking out, not excessively, but he's having those growing pains. But he's doing a really good job at making contact in the zone. So he's not missing hittable pitches, and he's getting quality swings on them when he does swing at them. And I want to say, I'm looking for the specific stat, but his hard hit rate is something like 45%, and league average is like 36.
Yeah.
So he's maximizing that contact, especially in the zone. And that's one of the big differentiators. And I don't quite think he had that in the game when we saw him on that brief sample size last year.
Right. Yeah. His numbers so far, 851 OPS, 4 home runs, 11 RBIs. You mentioned that, those are some surprising numbers there, but he's gotten off to a hot start, which has been great for us. And everybody's shouting his praises right now. Do you feel like he's going to end up being more of an offensive guy or a defensive guy?
So obviously, if the bat keeps up, he's going to be not only an offensive guy, he's probably going to end up being one of the top 5 or 10 catchers in baseball if the bat keeps up like it is. The reason that I've been so I felt like he was ready was I got a chance to watch him play in person last year. And the pitchers were just very, very comfortable with him. He looked comfortable behind the plate. The pitchers looked comfortable. The hitters did not. It kind of gave me a good insight into his game calling, into the way he can handle his staff, and then his defense. Really good as far as blocking, framing, everything except for I think the high strike was a little bit of an issue. He was good. He's good at the low strike, not so much the high strike. But if the power keeps up like this, you're looking at a top 10 catcher in baseball. The average catcher OPS for last year was like 663. And he's like an 864 right now. And not counting whatever he did on Monday. And so if he hits like this, he's a top 5, top 10 catcher in baseball, especially if he can make 110 starts, 120 starts. I don't quite think I had him as a defense first guy who would be a good offensive player, but a plus defender. He's exceeded even my expectations. And I had lofty expectations. I joined a new dynasty league this year, a big money league. And first guy I went out to get was Logan O'Hoppe because he wasn't valued correctly by the rest of the league. And I think baseball in general didn't really value him the way they should have, except for the Angels.
Now, there's this tweet that got released, I think it was Monday, and people are saying that Logan O'Hoppe is going to play in New York for the first time since 2018 because he caught a home run ball from an opposing player and he threw it back in. People are trying to decide if that actually is Logan in the stands or not. But the point that I want to make is that he just doesn't seem like a guy so far whose eyes get really big wherever he's at. He had to be the openings day starter for Shohei, and Shohei was interviewed and said, I just want this guy to relax, and it was easy to get him to relax. Was that something that you noticed and why you were so high on him? Because the makeup of this guy just seems to be a mature individual who's ready to go.
Yeah, it's something where he never really felt like the moment was too big. I saw him bat in the 9th inning in a game where they're down, and he's blowing a bubble as he walks up to the plate. Yeah. Just nice and casual. And it's really, really hard to teach that mindset and to teach that comfort with yourself and your abilities and what you can do. It's a fine line between confidence and cockiness. And he's really good at being confident without being cocky. It doesn't come off as disrespectful, but he understands what he can do on a baseball field, understands what he can't do, and is really good at maximizing his abilities. And so it's on vibes. Catchers, it's so hard to evaluate based on the statistics and the numbers. It's really kind of vibes. And so I rarely get to see a catcher, a top catching prospect in the minors, and then be as impressed as I was with Logan O'Hoppe. And to the fact that I went out and got him in a dynasty league. It's not common to see a guy that young who in a situation like he was, where he gets traded, be that comfortable at the plate, behind the plate, and on the mound talking to his pitchers.
Is everything about him sustainable in terms of the offense and the defense? Is there anything that might go away with age? I know you mentioned last time we talked about him being so young and, he's not quite grown up. It's kind of the only way I can think about putting it, but maybe adding more muscle in the future, maybe adding some power to that bat in the future. What do you think?
Yeah, we typically see these young baseball players not necessarily be fully formed products physically at 23. There's a little bit of lingering strength gains. When we talk about things that are sustainable and not sustainable and what may go away, he's feasting pretty well on fastballs right now. 640 slugging on fastballs, whereas I want to say breaking's 462 and off speed's 333. And nobody's really coming at him with off speed stuff. It's mostly fastball, breaking ball. And so I do think there's an adjustment coming where the league realizes not that he's bad with off speed, but we haven't seen him be as good with it as we have at everything else. And in the limited sample, it's like 12 pitches on the year.
Yeah.
He swung and missed more, over 50% on off-speed pitches.
Yeah,
and
that
so
makes sense.
Obviously context dependent. If you're geared up for fastballs, you've got nothing but fastballs, you're going to swing over a changeup. But still something where I expect that adjustment to come. And then once that adjustment happens, how long does it take him to react to it? From what I've seen, it should be pretty quickly. The Southern League, especially last year, there was a lot of breaking and off-speed stuff, and he came in and was wrecking right away. So I expect him to adjust pretty quickly, but I'm still waiting for that to actually happen in a game.
So on Saturday, we were shocked because Zach Neto was called up. So surprise us again, shock us again. Who's the next guy, Lindsay? Because it seems like Perry Manassian is just cutthroat right now. You're not performing, he's going to go get somebody that he drafted. So who is that next guy?
Let me get him up to speed really fast because this is what happened, Lindsay. We had to option David Fletcher to AAA outright, and now he's not on the 40-man roster.
Yeah.
This is David Fletcher, who has a $25 million contract. It's like $5-6 million a year, something around there. Somebody who has been an everyday person in the lineup.
Had a great 2020.
Had a great 2020 and a great 2019 as well. And he has been hurt the last few years. Mike and I think that him getting reps in AAA is a great thing for him because off the bench, it just wasn't happening. And the other side of the coin here, if you're an Angels fan, you know that every time the bullpen comes in, you're sick to your stomach. You're not sure what's going to happen next.
That's true.
And Ryan Tepera just went on the IL. Aaron Loop has just not been able to put it together. We talked about that earlier in our episode. And so that's kind of some things to consider as you take a look at who might be the next up. A lot of fans really want Ben Joyce on this roster. I'm interested to hear what you have to say.
It is not going to be Ben Joyce.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I mean, correction. If they know what they're doing, it's not going to be Ben Joyce.
Okay.
Here's the thing about Ben Joyce. And as somebody who watched him in junior college at Walter State, as somebody who watched him in at Tennessee, as a credentialed member of the media covering SEC baseball, Ben Joyce, once in his entire career, going back to junior college, has once ever pitched on back-to-back days.
Wow.
It's just not a thing that he does. His time in college and last year, over 80% of his appearances were on 2 or more days of rest.
Wow.
And when you are a part of a major league bullpen, especially one that is having to cover multiple innings and is shorthanded because you're running a 6-man rotation, there is no way to sustainably carry somebody who is only available every third day. It's just not, it just doesn't happen. Everybody's enamored because the fastball is incredibly fast. I get that. It is legitimately an 80 grade pitch when he can command it. But I need to remind everybody, I did a whole segment of a show about a team that threw 14 innings in the minors over 2 games, gave up 1 total hit, and lost one of those games. And Ben Joyce was the man on the mound when they lost that 7th inning.
Yep.
He came on in the 7th in a no-hitter. Walk, fly out, walk, strike out, walk. I mean, not competitive pitches. I went back and watched the outing. They weren't competitive pitches. He has a fastball that is fantastic when he can command it. He sails that sucker a lot. He has a slider that is above average. But again, he's still trying to figure out the best grip for the slider. And then again, he can't work on back-to-back days. He's done it once ever since high school, and that was in college.
Wow.
And it wasn't even a conference opponent. It was a non-conference opponent. And I want to say the second outing was like 7 pitches. It wasn't even a lot. And so Ben Joyce is not going to be the guy that is called up. I'm not quite sure who it's going to be because this system throws us for loops, but it's not going to be Ben Joyce. My choice, if it was anybody, would be someone like Sam Bachman. Who I think has made strides as a starter. I really like Sam Bachman. He's looked good in his first 2 starts in Double-A. But the control looks good. The third pitch, the changeup has come in, but the fastball slider combination are still really good and could work out of the bullpen. I feel like he's more likely to come up than a guy like Ben Joyce, who you can't count on back-to-back, and you can't count on to even be able to find the zone, knowing that you are limited. You have to throw him for 3 batters, even if he can't find the zone.
True.
So it's something where part of being a professional baseball player, a professional pitcher, is 1, learning to work back to back, but 2, learning how to work when you don't have one of your pitches. And he can't always work when he has both of them. Never mind if he doesn't have one. So if the Angels know it's good for them, it's not going to be Ben Joyce. Nothing against Ben Joyce. He's a wonderful young man.
Unfortunately, That caveat is appropriate.
Yeah.
The Angels know what's good for them.
The Angels know it's good for them. He's not ready for Major League Baseball. Double-A is where he needs to be to continue figuring it out. Right now, he's thrown 2 2/3 innings with 5 walks.
Mm-hmm.
And the season's been going on for a week and a half.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
He's thrown 3 times.
So when we talk about bullpen names, how about like a Colton Ingram or an Eric Torres? Do you think any one of those guys would be a good move if the Angels needed to solidify that bullpen?
I could see Torres as being somebody. He's looked like in limited looks, he's looked good so far. I could see him being a guy. It's really down to, do you need somebody who can flex into a starting spot, or do you need somebody who can, like, if you get somebody who has a history of being a starter, you have the ability to put them in to eat multiple innings, because right now, having a short bullpen, you absolutely have to have guys that can go out there on a drop of a hat and take 2 or 3 innings later in a game and bridge you over, save the rest of the bullpen. And I'm not sure if everybody down on the farm has that ability. A lot of the guys who have been relievers for a couple years aren't always stretched out and can handle multiple innings like that. That's why I like the idea of a Sam Bachman, maybe a Kai Busch, something like that. If I had to pick, I'm probably taking Bachman just because I like how his stuff has improved. But at the same time, I see the benefit of give him some more time to get settled and comfortable with that changeup and get a little more work in before you do it. But that's my pick, is Sam Bachman.
The Angels certainly have a lot of options out of AAA as well. They signed a ton of bullpen depth with major league experience. And so I think before it gets to that point of, hey, let's bring up another new guy for the season, somebody right fresh off the Trash Pandas, I think they have a couple of other routes that they can go. Yeah. But it is interesting to hear Sam Bachman potentially being, the next exciting guy to come up, and eventually we'll have the Los Angeles Trash Pandas of Anaheim, and we're okay with that.
I mean, like half of the top 30 prospects are in Rocket City, which makes sense. I mean, that's where you go for the most development. The Southern League is one of the better Double-A leagues in baseball, so it makes sense. And I love Edgar Cuero being there, just skipping Tri-City completely. That's a terrible park to hit in. Doesn't help anybody's confidence. And so he went straight to Double-A, and I think he looks fantastic.
Yeah.
He's not ready to get called up yet. Don't do that.
Dang
but,
it.
And when you mentioned it, there are, Sam Bachman's not on the 40-man roster. That's obviously something you have to think about here. Whereas a guy like a Chase Silseth is in AAA and is on the 40-man roster. So he's more likely to get called up than Bachman. I just selfishly, as the prospect guy, I want Bachman. Yes, I like Silseth too. Yeah. I just want Bachman because I've enjoyed watching him so far this year. And I think he deserves a chance to debut and see what he can do at the major league level.
And you both have great beards. You and Sam Bachman have tremendous beards.
We work on that.
Lindsay, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate all your insight and for breaking our hearts and telling us that Ben Joyce is not going to be on this major league roster anytime soon. But it's good information because fans seem to think that they know what's best for this team, but you're paying attention to those players. And so I love the information you shared with us. So thank you so much for bringing that to us today.
Thanks for having me, guys. This is always tons of fun. And I tell everybody, I have a bunch of Angels on my fantasy teams because I enjoy watching the Angels. This is my West Coast team. And whenever I'm up late at night, I'm watching you guys play. So go Angels.
There we go. Love it.